Have you ever noticed how, after experiencing even a brief glimpse of spiritual awakening, the inner drive that once fueled your ambitions can suddenly fade away? You may recall a time when you were constantly setting goals, climbing social and professional ladders, and mapping out plans for the future. Suddenly, after that taste of awakening, all those pursuits seem strangely hollow. The energy to push forward and strive for more simply evaporates. Friends and family might worry, thinking you've lost your ambition or drive. However, what's really happening is a subtle and profound transformation. Spiritual awakening doesn't extinguish your life force. Instead, it dissolves the illusion that life is a battle to be won or a mountain to be conquered. When this illusion collapses, the motivation that depended on it also fades away. But in its absence, something deeper and more authentic begins to emerge. What we often mistake for motivation is, at its core, a kind of restlessness. A ceaseless urge to prove ourselves and escape a sense of inadequacy. This restlessness is a deep-seated itch to prove your worth, to outrun the persistent feeling that you are not enough. Our society encourages and rewards this state because it maintains high productivity and keeps the wheels of industry in perpetual motion. However, beneath the surface, what truly drives this restlessness is fear. The fear of being nothing, of not measuring up. Spiritual awakening reveals this fear for what it truly is, an illusion, as insubstantial as smoke. As you see through it, the compulsion to chase after goals and external validation fades. To outsiders, this shift may appear to be laziness or a loss of purpose. Internally, it can feel like emptiness, even loss. Yet this emptiness is not a barren void. It is an open space, fertile ground for something new and genuine to grow. For the first time, you are not driven by comparisons, nor are you compelled to keep pace with others or flee from yourselves. Awakening can indeed feel like the death of ambition, because most of our old ambitions were never truly our own. They were inherited, passed down by parents, teachers, media, and the culture at large, all shaping who we thought we should be. When awakening shatters this illusion, the inner machinery that kept you striving falls silent. The initial silence can be profoundly disorienting. This sense of being unmotivated arises because the old fuel, fear, has finally run out. What you lose is not genuine energy, but the frantic, exhausting energy of a hamster running in its wheel, always striving but never arriving. What remains is subtler and quieter, but also more real and sustainable. You begin to see that not everything in life requires effort or force. Much of existence unfolds naturally, with or without your intervention. The seasons change, your heart beats, your breath flows, all without ambition or striving. In this new state, awakening dissolves the compulsive need to strive, clearing the way for you to rediscover a natural sense of motivation. This new movement comes not from fear or a lack of something, but from joy and a sense of fullness. It's the difference between frantic running and joyful dancing. Many people panic in this space, fearing that without ambition, they'll achieve nothing. Yet, even now, your body continues its vital functions without conscious effort. Nature does not require you to force it forward. What disappears is not life itself, but the tension that once made life feel like a constant struggle. You may find yourself resting more, doing less, but what you do is more in tune with your authentic self. Your energy is no longer scattered in all directions. Instead, it is focused, and your way of living becomes more direct, simple, and true. When you were a child, you played not because of ambition, not because you needed to achieve. You played because life itself was delightful. That energy was pure. Awakening restores that childlike state, but with the wisdom of an adult, you no longer run after toys of status or approval. You rediscover the simple joy of being alive. And from that joy, action flows naturally. You may work, you may create, you may build, but it is no longer necessary to prove your worth. It is simply the play of existence. This is motivation reborn, free of chains. Despite this, the process can be deeply uncomfortable. There is often a period of drifting, a sense of being lost in transition. The old identity, rooted in ambition and striving, dissolves, but a new foundation has yet to emerge. In this liminal space, you are no longer propelled by fear, but you have not yet been fully moved by joy. This is why many speak of a dark night of the soul following awakening, a time when it feels as if life has abandoned you. In reality, the old fire has simply burned out, and you are waiting for a new, gentler warmth to arrive. Patience is essential in this phase. If you cling to old forms of ambition, you will only stir up restlessness. If you can trust the silence and the emptiness, you will eventually discover something far more profound. The Stoics understood this. 2. They spoke of acting in harmony with nature, not chasing endlessly, not withdrawing entirely, but aligning with the current of life. Spiritual awakening, when it kills your false motivation, is nudging you into this harmony. You begin to realize that your worth is not measured by your achievements. And in that realization, the pressure to be extraordinary lifts. You realize that you do not need to stand out or prove yourself. You simply need to exist as you are. Ironically, it is often in this relaxed and accepting state that true creativity can flourish. This is not the frantic creativity born of desperation or lack, but the creativity that springs from abundance and genuine inspiration. Imagine the artist painting not for money or acclaim, but because they are moved by the colors themselves, or the gardener tending the earth, not for recognition, but for the love of the process. This is the essence of awakened motivation. Outwardly, it may appear quieter, but internally it is richer, deeper, and far more sustainable. Where the flame of ambition once burned, now the steady glow of joy remains. Awakening may extinguish your restless striving, but it kindles a more enduring light, one that does not consume you, but gently guides you onward, like a candle in the darkness. So do not mourn the death of the old drive. See it for what it was, a fever, a dream of becoming. It served you once, perhaps in building strength, in learning, discipline. But now it has run its course. Awakening asks you to live without that fever, to trust that life does not need your constant pushing. And when you surrender, you discover a new energy rising. It is quieter. Yes, it may not impress the world, but it is real. And in time, it proves more powerful than all the restless ambition that once consumed you. When the restless ambition dies, it feels like losing fuel. But what you lost was not fuel. It was firewood soaked in fear. It burned hot, but it smoked. It choked you. The new energy is like clean air, invisible, yet it sustains. It does not roar like flames. It hums like the breath. That is why many mistake it for nothing. They say, I feel empty, I feel unmotivated. But the emptiness is fertile soil. In stillness, new roots grow. When you trust this process, you find that life itself, it begins to move through you without coercion. Awakening, then, is not the end of action. It is the end of frantic action. It is the end of struggling to climb to a future that never arrives. You may still work, still build, still dream, but it comes from a different place. No longer from the tension of I must prove myself, but from the joy of I am alive and I can create. Notice the shift. One is slavery. The other is play. And when life becomes play, the quality of your action deepens. You are not burned out. You are not divided. You are whole. But society rarely understands this. The world looks at the awakened one and says, you've lost your drive. You've given up. They mistake peace for laziness. But that is because they only know one kind of motivation. The restless kind, they cannot see the deeper current moving silently beneath them. They measure life in terms of output, in trophies, and in endless striving. But awakening shows you another measure: presence, clarity, freedom. And while the world may not applaud these, they are the true treasures. For trophies gather dust, achievements fade, but freedom once tasted is never lost. Some may ask, but how do I live in a world that demands ambition while my awakening dissolves it? The answer is balance. You can still play the game, but you no longer believe it is ultimate. You can still work, earn, create, but without chaining your identity to the outcome. This is the secret. You do what is needed, but you are no longer consumed by it. And when you are free inwardly, you often perform better outwardly, for pressure and fear no longer cloud your mind. You act with clarity, like water flowing where it must. This is why many awakened people speak of effortless action. In Taoist thought, it is called wu-yi, not inaction, but natural action. Like a tree growing without strain, like a river carving valleys without struggle. Your motivation after awakening becomes like this. You no longer force yourself, you allow yourself, and in allowing you to discover a deeper energy, one that does not run dry because it is not pulled from fear or ego. It is drawn from the very rhythm of life itself. That rhythm sustains you far more than ambition ever could. Let us not pretend this is easy. The transition is unsettling. You may feel lost between the world's demands and your own inner silence. However, remember that the silence is not empty. It is waiting for you to trust it long enough for the new current to carry you. If you rush back to your old ambition, you will feel restless. If you cling to stillness without trust, you may feel a sense of numbness, but if you relax into the rhythm, you discover that action and rest find their own balance. Motivation returns not as compulsion, but as natural flow. Have you noticed that when you truly love something, you don't need motivation? The painter does not need discipline to pick up the brush when inspiration floods in. The mother does not need reminders to care for her child. True love moves effortlessly. Awakening strips away the false loves, the borrowed ambitions, the external pressures so that only true love remains. And when you act from that love, motivation is no longer a question. You simply move. You cannot help it. This is the mystery. Awakening kills your false drive, so that real passion can finally speak. And perhaps this is why many feel frightened by awakening. For it does not give you more ambition. It takes it away. It takes away the very thing you thought defined you. But in that loss lies the gift. For what you are left with is life itself, unfiltered. Life that does not demand performance but invites participation. And participation is enough. You need not climb to the sky to be worthy of the ground beneath your feet. You need not conquer the world to deserve its beauty. You are already part of it, already whole, already home. So the death of motivation is not the end. It is the beginning of alignment. It is life, pulling you back from restless striving into harmony, like an ocean wave that rises, peaks, and falls. Your ambition, too, must rise and fall. Awakening teaches you not to cling to the peak, not to fear the fall, for the energy of the ocean is endless. Another wave will come in its time, and when it comes, you ride it naturally without forcing. That is awakened motivation, not chasing waves, but dancing with them, rising and falling in rhythm with life. And so if you feel your ambition has died out after awakening, do not despair. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are being invited into a deeper way of living, a way where action flows from stillness, where joy replaces fear, where play replaces striving. At first it feels like a death, but in truth it is a birth of freedom, of authenticity, of clarity. Let the old motivation go. Trust the silence and watch how, in its own time, a new energy arises, quieter, truer, more enduring. The energy of life itself is moving through you, and then everything changes. Work feels lighter. Relationships feel freer. Even rest feels more complete. You are no longer chained to the voice that says, prove yourself. Prove yourself. You have nothing to prove. You have only to live, and in living, you give more than you ever did by striving. For your presence becomes your gift. Your clarity becomes your contribution. Your peace becomes your power. This is the paradox. When awakening kills the old motivation, it awakens a deeper energy, one that does not burn out, one that does not enslave, one that carries you forward gently. The motivation that dies is the restless chase for approval, status, and control. What arises in its place is natural, movement born of joy, love, and presence. At first, you may feel empty, but that emptiness is space. Space for something real to grow. Trust it. Do not fear the silence, for in the silence, life itself begins to move through you. And when it does, you will know true motivation was never yours to create. It was always here.